Ever just stared at a blank page or a phone or an email and felt completely paralyzed? You want to start the project. You want to make the call. You want to hit publish. But there's that little voice, that heavy feeling in your chest that whispers, "Don't. What if you mess it all up?" That's the fear of failure. Welcome to the channel. Today, we're not running from that feeling. We're going to dissect it. Because here's the truth. Fear of failure isn't something you need to cure. It's human. The question is it driving you, or are you learning how to drive it? In this video, we are going to unpack 12 practical secrets to completely reframe your relationship with failure. We're going to turn it from a wall that stops you into a ladder that helps you climb. By the end of this, you'll have a clear toolkit to start that project, make that call, and push your own boundaries. Let's get started with secret number 1.
The first and most important thing. Our brain, especially when we're anxious, is an unreliable storyteller. It takes a feeling, anxiety, doubt, and dresses it up as an absolute fact. Your feeling is, I am feeling a lot of fear. The story your brain tells is, this means I will fail. These two things are not the same. Fear is just a chemical reaction. It's adrenaline. It's your nervous system saying, hey, pay attention, this matters. It is not a prophet. It cannot predict the future. So here's the practical tip. The fact versus story exercise. When you feel paralyzed by that fear, get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. In the fact column, write only what is objectively true. For example, fact, I have to give a presentation. Fact, I have never done this exact one before. Fact, my heart is beating fast. Now in the story column, write what your brain is adding to that. Story, I'm going to forget everything. Story, everyone will think I'm an idiot. Story, my career will be over. When you see it written out, separated like this, you realize something. The fact column is manageable. You can prepare for a presentation. You can take deep breaths for your heart rate. The story column is just noise. It's a disaster movie written by your own brain. The first secret is to recognize that noise. Don't try to fight the feeling of fear. Just stop believing the fictional story it's telling. Okay, so you've separated the fact from the story, but now your fact is, I have to write a 10,000-word thesis, or I have to start a business. That fact alone is paralyzing. This is where fear of failure uses its favorite trap, the all-or-nothing trap. Your brain says, this is too big. I can't do it perfectly right now, so it's better to do nothing at all. And so you scroll on your phone. We are going to break this trap with the 5-minute rule. It's simple. You make a deal with yourself. You will only work on that scary task for 5 minutes. If, after 5 minutes, you still hate it and want to stop, you get to stop. Zero judgment. Do you see what this does? It shrinks the task from write a thesis to open the Word doc and type for 5 minutes. Fear of failure can't activate when the stakes are ridiculously small. And what's the magic part? 9 times out of 10, when that 5 minutes is up, you won't stop because the hardest part was starting. Action creates motivation. Motivation doesn't create action. Stop waiting for the feeling to strike. Use the 5-minute rule to trick your brain past that initial wall of resistance. That's how you start climbing that mountain, one tiny step at a time. All right, let's talk about the word failure. It feels heavy, doesn't it? It feels like a full stop, a verdict, a label stamped on you. Why does it have so much power? Because from a very young age, we were programmed to believe that failure is a sign of inadequacy. In school,
You got an F. You were penalized. You were less than. Our brains learned failure equals shame. Failure equals punishment. Failure is I am not good enough. We were taught to avoid failure at all costs, not taught how to learn from it. And this is where we have to do the reprogramming. We need to strip the emotional charge from the word failure and replace it with a much more neutral word, data. Think about this. A scientist, when they run an experiment and it doesn't give the expected result, do they tear their hair out and scream, "I am a failure as a scientist"? No. Or maybe, but then they calm down, pull out their notebook and say, interesting. This experiment gave me data that hypothesis A was incorrect. Good. Now let's test hypothesis B. They don't see it as a personal failing. They see it as a necessary step in the process of discovery. You must apply this mindset to your life. When you apply for a job and get rejected, old story, failure. They didn't like me. I'm not good enough. New mindset, data. The data shows my resume didn't get past this stage. I need to update it. When you start a side hustle and no one buys, old story, I'm a failure. My idea was stupid. New mindset? The data shows this marketing channel isn't working or my messaging isn't clear. I know this is easier said than done. The feeling of failure is still real. It still stings. This secret isn't about pretending you're not upset. It's about not letting that emotion write the entire story. So, here is your exercise. The next time something fails, do this 3-step data report. Step 1, what happened? Just the facts, no emotion. Example, I sent 50 emails and got 0 replies. Step 2, what data did I collect? Example, the data is my email subject line might be weak or I targeted the wrong audience. Step 3, what is my next hypothesis? Example, my next hypothesis is that I will try 3 different subject lines, A/B testing, on the next 30 people. See that? You just turned a paralyzing failure into an action plan. You moved from being the victim, I failed, to being the scientist, I'm learning. Your worth is not on the line. Your ego is not on the line. Your worth is in your willingness to run the experiment. Do you ever feel like you're holding your breath? Like you can't relax, you can't feel successful until you've achieved the thing, until you get the promotion, until you have 10,000 followers, until you publish the book. This is one of the biggest traps of modern life. We can call it destination addiction. We are taught to measure our worth by the outcome. Here's the problem. If success is only the moment you get the trophy, then what about the other 99.9% of the time? The time spent training, stumbling, and writing at 3 a.m. Is all of that failure? Fear of failure thrives in this environment. Because when you focus only on the outcome, you've placed your entire well-being on something you don't fully control. You can't control if your boss gives you the promotion. You can't control if the algorithm favors your video. What can you control? You can control your process. You control if you show up today. You control if you put in your best effort. You control if you learn from the data from Secret 3. Here is the secret. You must learn to redefine the win. The win is not publishing the book. The win is writing 500 words today. The win is not becoming a millionaire. The win is making 3 cold calls today. The win is not running the marathon. The win is putting on your shoes and running for 10 minutes today. Why is this a game changer? Because when you focus on the outcome, you have one chance to succeed at the very end. When you focus on the process, You have hundreds of chances to succeed every single day. Am I saying outcomes don't matter? No. I know you need to pay your bills. I know you want the recognition. Here is the paradox. The surest way to get extraordinary outcomes is to stop obsessing over them and obsess over executing your process instead. When you love the process, you can do it for a long time. When you do it for a long time, you get good. When you get good, the results find you. Fear of failure wants you to look at the summit. I want you to look at your shoes. Just focus on the next step. That is your win for today. We've talked about separating fact from feeling, about the 5-minute rule, about failure as data, and focusing on the process. But there's a reason, a deeper reason, why all of that still feels so hard. It's because most of us, deep down, don't just fear failing, the verb. We fear being a failure, the noun. We have unconsciously fused our identity with our performance. Think about it. When did this start? When you were a kid, you brought home an A on a test. What did you get? Love, approval, praise. You're so smart. You brought home an F. What did you get? Disappointment, anger, or worse, silence. You've disappointed us. The programming was crystal clear. Success equals you are good, you are worthy of love. Failure equals you are bad, you are unworthy. We learned our worth was conditional. It wasn't inherent. It was something to be earned over and over through performance. Now fast forward to today. You're 25, 30 years old. You're not trying to get an A anymore. You're trying to get the promotion, launch the business, get the perfect relationship. But your brain is still running that old, outdated operating system. This is why the fear of failure is so paralyzing. It's not just, I might lose money. It's not just, I might be embarrassed. The deep, primal fear is, if this fails, I am a failure. It means I am not good enough. It means I am not worthy. When the stakes are your entire self-worth, of course you're terrified. It would be insane not to be. So, how do we break this? You must practice a radical separation. You have to build an unbreachable firewall in your mind. On one side, your core worth. On the other side, your performance. Your core worth is non-negotiable. It's inherent. It was 100% the day you were born, and it will be 100% the day you die. It has nothing to do with your job, your bank balance, or your follower count. It just is. Your performance is the stuff you do. It's variable. It's your playground. It's where you experiment. You learn. It's where you get A's and F's. And this is the key. You must allow your performance to fail spectacularly without ever letting it touch your core worth. So, how do you practice this? With your language. Stop saying, I am an idiot. Say, I did an idiotic thing. Stop saying, I am a failure. Say, this project I ran failed. See the difference? I am is an identity sentence. I did is an action report. Actions can be changed. With compassion. This is the most important part. When you fail, that old operating system is going to boot up and start screaming, you're useless, you're not good enough. You cannot fight this with logic. You must fight it with kindness. You must talk to yourself the way you would talk to a best friend. Say to yourself, wow, this hurts. This feeling of failure is awful, and it's okay to feel this way. You tried hard. You took a risk. That was brave. Separate yourself. Be the observer of the pain, not the pain itself. Failure is an event, not a person. Your work is something you do. It is not who you are. When you truly believe this, the fear of failure loses its teeth. It might still bite, but it can't kill you.
Okay, we have done a lot of important internal work. We've built the firewall between our core worth and our performance. But there's a small problem. When you're standing in front of a real risk, your logical brain might be saying, "It's fine. My worth isn't on the line." But your heart is still pounding. Your palms are still sweating. Your throat is still closing up. Why? Because your nervous system hasn't gotten the memo. Your lizard brain is still running an ancient program. Thousands of years ago, if you were rejected by your tribe, it meant death. Rejection equals expulsion equals getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So your brain developed a very powerful defense mechanism. Rejection equals extreme pain. Avoid it at all costs. The problem is, today, getting rejected for a raise, or asking someone on a date, or having your video get no views, there is no tiger. But your nervous system doesn't know that. It's still reacting like you're about to die. So, we have to retrain it. We do that through exposure therapy. If you're afraid of spiders, you don't get over it by reading about spiders. You have to start by looking at a picture, then being in the same room. We are going to do the same thing with rejection. We are going to actively seek out small, controlled failures. I call this the rejection challenge. Your goal this week is to fail, on purpose, but start ridiculously small. The point is for your nervous system to experience a tiny shock and realize, oh, I'm still alive. Here are your examples. Go to buy a coffee. When they tell you the price, ask, "Can I have a 10% discount?" 99% of the time, they will say, "No." When they do, you smile and say, "No problem, thank you," and pay the full price. The result? You felt awkward for 10 seconds. And then, nothing happened. You did not die. No tiger. In a clothing store, pick up an item and ask an employee if they have it in electric yellow or some ridiculous color. They will say, "No." You say, "Thanks for checking," and you leave. Email an author, CEO, or influencer you admire and ask them a question. They probably won't respond. That's a passive rejection. Do you see what we're doing? We are decoupling the act of rejection from the feeling of danger. Every time you do this, you are building an emotional callus. You are retraining your primal brain in the only language it understands: experience. You are proving to it over and over, rejection is uncomfortable, but it is not fatal. When you can handle the small intentional failures, you start to realize you can handle the bigger unintentional ones. The fear never goes away completely, but it stops being a roaring saber-toothed tiger. It just becomes a kitten meowing in the corner, a noise you can acknowledge and step past anyway. Okay, so exposure therapy is great for small social risks. But what about the big stuff? What if I quit my job to start my business and it completely fails? What if I invest this money and I lose it all? This isn't the fear of awkwardness. This is the fear of ruin. When faced with these risks, our brain does something called catastrophizing. It doesn't just imagine failing. It imagines a bottomless pit of failure. It starts with, "The business might fail," and it ends at, "and I will be homeless and living in a box." This fear is vague, it's undefined, and that vagueness is what gives it power. It's the monster in the closet. You fear it because you can't see it. So we are going to turn the light on. This secret comes from Stoicism, and it is incredibly powerful. We are going to define the fear. Here's the exercise. The 3-column doomsday scenario. Get a piece of paper. Column 1, define.
Write down the absolute worst things that could happen if you fail. Be specific, not "my life is over." Write, "I will lose $5,000 of my savings. I will have to tell my parents I failed. I will have to go back and get my old job." Write them all down. Stare the monster in the face. Column 2, repair. Now, next to each one, write one specific action you could take to repair or recover from it. Lose $5,000? I will move back in with my family for 6 months to save money. Or I will get a part-time job. Tell my parents? They will be disappointed, but they will get over it. I will survive that conversation. Get an old job? I will update my resume and contact 3 old colleagues. Column 3, prevent. Finally, what can you do right now to prevent or soften those worst-case scenarios from even happening? Lose $5,000? I will start the business part-time before I quit my job, to only risk $1,000. Get an old job? I will maintain a good relationship with my old boss, just in case. Do you see what just happened? The vague, terrifying monster, "my life will be over," is gone. In its place, you have a list of manageable problems. You realize 2 things. The worst-case scenario, while unpleasant, is survivable. It is not fatal. You have way more control than you thought. The fear of failure isn't the fear of the wrong action. It's the fear of the unknown. By creating a doomsday scenario, you just gave your brain a map. You just gave it a safety net. Now that your brain isn't busy screaming danger, it can free up that energy to actually do the work. You ever do this? You have an idea. You feel that spark of excitement. You're ready to start. And then you just check one quick thing. You see an old colleague just got a promotion. You see someone your age just launched that startup. You see that YouTuber you follow hit 1 million subscribers, celebrating on a yacht. And suddenly, your idea, your excitement, it feels small, stupid, too late. Welcome to the single biggest trap of modern fear: comparison. Here is the raw truth. We are comparing our messy, chaotic behind the scenes with everyone else's carefully edited highlight reel. You don't see the 500 drafts they threw away. You don't see their 3 failed companies. You don't see the 2 a.m. panic calls, the rejections, the debt. You only see the final product wrapped in a beautiful filter. And your brain, already scared, says, "See, everyone else has it figured out, except me. I'm guaranteed to fail because I can't even start as perfectly as they finished." Your fear of failure isn't because you're lazy. Your fear of failure is because you're in a race you cannot win. You're trying to compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. So what do? We have to change the metric completely. You are only allowed to compare yourself to one person, you, from yesterday. Here is the secret. Turn this from a multiplayer competition into a single-player game. Instead of a to-do list that makes you feel behind, keep a progress journal or a done list and write down the tiniest wins. Before, I only wrote for 5 minutes. That's pathetic. That other guy finished a whole book. External comparison. Now, win. Yesterday, I was too scared to even open the file. Today, I wrote for 5 minutes. I am 100% better than yesterday me. Internal comparison. Before, my first video only got 10 views. What a failure. Now, my first video got 10 views. Last month, I had 0 videos. This is data. Now let's make the next one. Use other people's success as inspiration, not as ammunition. When you see someone succeeding, practice this thought shift. Instead of, "Why not me?" think, "Wow, that's amazing. That proves it's possible." Bless their success, and then get back to your own page. Get back to your own single-player race. Your fear of failure dissolves when you realize you're not behind. You're just on your own path. And on that path, as long as you took one step, you've already won.
You have a secret, I have a secret. Our secret is we're terrified.
We're terrified we're not good enough, that we'll mess it all up, that we're an imposter. And the most terrifying part? We believe we are the only one. Fear of failure has one best friend. Its name is shame. And shame has only one rule for its survival. You do not talk about it. Shame whispers to you, if they knew how scared you really were, they'd lose respect for you. They'd think you were weak. They'd leave you. And so what do? We put on the mask. We pretend. We say, I'm good. Everything's great. Just busy. We build a fortress around ourselves so no one can see the mess inside. But here is the paradox that will change your life if you let it. Your fear of failure grows in silence. Shame cannot survive exposure to empathy. It dissolves. Here is the secret. You must find a safe ally. This is not just anyone. This is not your competitive coworker. This is not your judgmental aunt. This is not your partner who immediately tries to fix you. A safe ally is someone whose compassion is bigger than their judgment. This is the person who, when you say, I feel like such a fraud, they don't say, oh, don't be silly, you're amazing. They don't say, well, what you should have done is. Instead, they take a breath, look at you, and say the two most powerful words in the universe, me too. Or they say, tell me more. What does that feel like? Your homework is this. Think of one person in your life who might fit this description. Send them a message. Say this, hey, do you have 10 minutes for me to vent about something? I'm not looking for advice. I just need to say it out loud to a friend. That I'm not looking for advice part is critical. It gives them permission to just listen. When you talk to them, speak the truth. I'm honestly terrified to start this project. I'm scared everyone will think it's stupid. The second those words leave your mouth, something magical happens. The fear doesn't vanish, but the shame does. The weight is no longer yours alone. It's shared. The monster in the closet, Secret 7, fears the light. And the monster of shame fears connection. You don't need an army. You just need one ally. Go find them.
There's a reason that smart, talented, driven people, like you, are often the most paralyzed by fear. It's because their fear of failure doesn't show up looking like laziness, it shows up looking like perfectionism. Sound familiar? You're not procrastinating. You're doing more research. You're not scared. You're just polishing. You've been on the same page, the same project for 3 weeks, just getting that first sentence right until it's perfect. We need to call this what it is. Perfectionism is not high standards. It is not a badge of excellence. Perfectionism is fear in a fancy suit. It is a sophisticated defense mechanism designed by your brain to do one thing: keep you safe from judgment. Your brain believes a dangerous fantasy. If I can just make something perfect, so bulletproof that it cannot be criticized, then no one can judge me. No one can reject me. I won't fail. But what happens? You never finish. You never hit publish. You never click send. And just like that, perfectionism achieved its secret goal. It protected you from failing by guaranteeing you never got a chance to succeed. You failed by default. You cannot edit a blank page. You can only edit something that exists. This is where we need version 1.0, or, as the author Anne Lamott calls it, the shitty first draft. Here is the secret. You must give yourself permission. You must actively plan for your first attempt to be bad. Your goal is not write a good chapter. Your goal is get a chapter done. Your goal is not launch a perfect business. Your goal is launch a good enough website. Why? Because feedback, the very thing the perfectionist is terrified of, is the data, secret 3, we need to improve. The perfectionist tries to go from step 0 to step 100 in one jump. The successful person goes from 0 to 1, then 1 to 2, then 2 to 3. Here is your assignment. Take whatever project you are stalling on. Label it as Project X version 1.0, the bad draft. Set a timer, like Secret 2, for 20 minutes and work with the only goal of finishing a small piece, not doing it well. Turn off your internal quality filter. Just write. Just design. Just do. Embrace the mess. Embrace the not quite rightness. Done is better than perfect. Done is something you can improve. Perfect is a fantasy that keeps you stuck. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. Give your version 1.0 permission to exist. It's the only step that gets you to version 2.0.
There is a ladder that we all seem to be climbing. The ladder says success is graduate from a good college, get a high-paying job, get the promotion, buy the house, buy the car. We can call this the default script. And because it's the only script that society, our parents, and social media constantly praise, we accept it without question. This is where the fear of failure really takes root. When you are running someone else's script, your fear isn't that you're letting them down. Your fear is that you'll be found out. The fear that you're doing all this, climbing this ladder, and you feel empty. The fear that you get the success, the promotion, the house, and you feel nothing. You're still you, still anxious, just with a new title. When you let the outside world define success, you have given them total control over your happiness. If they clap, you feel good. If they are silent or critical, you feel like a failure. Your worth is tied to the external result. Secret 11 is an act of rebellion. It is taking the pen back. It is writing the definition yourself. You must shift from an external metric to an internal compass. Here is the exercise. Instead of asking, what does the world want from me? Ask, what actually matters to me? You can do this by thinking about your values instead of goals. A goal is a destination. Make $100,000. You can fail at this. A value is a direction. Be generous. You can practice this right now. The default script values money, power, status. Your internal compass might value curiosity, kindness, creativity, connection with family, freedom. And here is the part that changes everything. When you redefine your success around those values, failure almost ceases to exist. Why? If your definition of success is make $100,000, you can fail. But if your definition of success is be creative, you launch a project. It fails. No one buys it. But you learned a new skill. You experimented. You did not fail. You succeeded at being creative. If your success is connection, you call 3 potential clients, they say no, but you had one genuine conversation, you succeeded. Stop trying to win someone else's game. Quit the default script. Sit down and write 3 to 5 of your values. That is your compass. Success stops being a far-off mountain peak. Success becomes, am I pointing true to my compass today, right now?
We've walked through 11 secrets. We've dissected our fear, planned for it, shared it, and redefined it. And now you might be thinking, great, so when does the fear go away? I have some good news, bad news for you. It doesn't. This is the biggest lie ever told about courage, that the successful, creative, brave people are the ones who are fearless. That is nonsense. They are just as scared. They are scared every single day. Fear is not a wall you eventually break down. Fear is a somewhat annoying, lifelong companion. Why? Because fear isn't a bug. Fear is evidence that you care. Fear is the signal that you are leaving your comfort zone and doing something that matters. If you didn't feel any fear, it would mean you were playing it way too safe. So here is the final secret. Imagine your life is a car. You are the driver. Fear is allowed in the car. It can sit in the passenger seat. You can acknowledge it. Hey, fear, I know you're here because we're about to do something big. Thanks for trying to keep me safe. But fear is not allowed to touch the steering wheel. Fear is not allowed to choose the map, and it is definitely not allowed to control the radio. You are the driver. You hear it, you nod, and then you say, "Now buckle up, we're going." That is courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. Courage is feeling your heart pound and hitting send anyway. Courage is feeling overwhelmed and doing it for 5 minutes. Courage is feeling like a failure and separating your identity from it. Courage is feeling imperfect and publishing version 1.0. The goal is not to be fearless. The goal is to be braver than your fear. The fear will be there. That's fine. Let it come along for the ride. And then go do the thing anyway.
We have covered a lot of ground in the last few minutes. If you are still here, it means a part of you is ready for a change, and that is truly admirable. Remember that feeling of paralysis from the beginning? That fear felt like a huge, undefined monster? What did we do? We turned on the lights. We learned how to reprogram our brains at the root. We learned to separate fact from the story our brain tells. We learned to turn failure from a verdict into data. Most importantly, we built that firewall to protect our core worth. We learned a project can fail, but that doesn't mean we are a failure. We threw out society's default script and decided to write our own definitions based on values, not trophies. But we didn't just stop at thinking. We built a practical toolkit. When you feel overwhelmed, you use the 5-minute rule. When you fear judgment, you go practice exposure therapy. When you fear ruin, you write the doomsday scenario. And when the demon of perfectionism shows up, you smile and say, "I'm just making the shitty first draft 1.0, because done is better than perfect." Finally, we learned we don't have to do this alone. We learned to stop comparing our chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. And we learned to break the silence, to find that safe ally, because shame can't survive empathy. The biggest takeaway today is not a magic trick to delete fear. As we learned in Secret 12, that fear isn't going anywhere. The biggest takeaway is this truth. Fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal that you are doing something that matters. The goal is not to be fearless. The goal is to act anyway. That is courage. And after today, you have 12 tools to do exactly that. Now it's your turn. Of all 12 secrets we talked about, which one resonated with you the most right now? Let me know in the comments below. I genuinely want to read them. And if this video brought you value, if it made you feel a little less alone, do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more people who need to hear this too. Thank you so much for your time. Be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next one.